Hey guys, I'm Karen with the Yoder Homestead. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to take a moment and just share my thoughts about this book and if it could be useful for you guys, and just some things that really popped out and gave me some understanding and some knowledge, things I didn't know, things I didn't think about, just basics that are just, very helpful. And then there's obviously some things that are in here that may not pertain to you or me, but it was a very good read, and I just wanted to share some of my thoughts with you guys. So let's jump right into the book, eh? All right, so before I start, this book is Polyface Micro by Joel Salatin, Success with Livestock on a Homestead Scale. I'll just read the back of it. It says, success with domestic livestock does not require large land bases. Joel Salatin and his family's Polyface farm in Virginia led the world in animal-friendly and ecologically authentic commercial pasture-based livestock production. In Polyface Micro, he adapts the ideas and protocols to small holdings, including apartments. Homesteaders can increase production, enjoy healthy animals, and create aesthetically and aromatically pleasant livestock systems. Whether you're a new or seasoned homesteader, you'll find tips and inspiration as Joel coaches you toward success and abundance. First off, if you are wanting to get animals or just learn better practices about animal husbandry, I would just recommend you reading this book. I have learned a lot about Joel and how his family does things on their farm, and just how practical they think, and the things that they do, how inexpensively you can do a lot of things. You don't have to spend a lot of money for shelter and housing for animals. There's a lot of different options that are available, and he goes through a lot of that. Some of the things that stuck out to me when I was reading this were what he calls his carbon diaper. That's actually his term, but using carbon bedding. So we have an abundance of wood chips, and I feel really blessed for that. Now that you guys know that we're moving, we are going to utilize the wood chips a lot more in a lot of different ways. And one of those ways is going to be for animals. So basically, he gives you options of, if you want a coop that stays in the same place, using carbon like wood chips in a way that can keep it from smelling, that can keep it clean, and just different ways to utilize products that are available in a lot of areas. Now, I'm not saying they're available everywhere, because some places it is hard to get wood chips. That was one thing that really stuck out to me, because we have access to a lot of wood chips. I'm not gonna go I don't want to share exactly what he said, because I don't want to give away what the book actually is. I just want to share some things that stuck out to me and just my review of it. But he talks about, so let's just go through the different chapters, what homesteaders may not know or grasp before going into holding animals and raising animals or anything like that. He shares about why homesteaders usually quit after 7 years if you're not ready to sustainably be responsible in raising animals or having animals, to raise animals either for just your meat production, or if you're actually or if you're actually raising them to sell them. So he just goes into a lot of that. He talks about maintenance practices that need to be put in place to take care of your homestead, fencing, and how to take care of that, what kind of fencing to build, what kind of fencing to use for different animals, how you can rotate them, what animals do well with each other. And he shares a lot about how they use rabbits and chickens and pigs together. In the wintertime especially, how he has his rabbit runs up above, and then the chickens go through and mix in the rabbit droppings and just urine and stuff like that, and mix it into the carbon layer. And then at the end of the wintertime, they take all of that carbon out and they put it out on the fields, and it's amazing qualities to put into your fields and stuff. So he talks about that, livestock stewardship, like how to set up layouts of your farm or your acre, or not even an acre. Like he talks about how to utilize every space you have, how to avoid sickness, how to avoid diseases, just good practices to put in place. And they're simple. Like it's not hard things. It's just making a routine and sticking to that routine. And that really stuck out to me because when we move, we have a lot more acreage, but we want to responsibly and slowly go into acquiring animals because we don't want to overdo it and get tired to the point where we can't handle what we took on. And so that's why I found this book really helpful. How to use water, very inexpensive ways to get water to, further distances, different kinds of shelters to use for animals, shade, cloth, just a whole bunch of things like that. How to have things that are movable, things that are mobile, how to build stuff like that. He also has a book, I'll put it up on the screen. I'm totally drawing a blank right now. He wrote a book about all of the structures and like a step-by-step process, material guide and everything to build all of the structures that they have on Polyface Farm. How to make sure your mindset's at a right place if you have an animal that is untrainable, to get rid of it. If you have an animal that is consistently getting sick, to get rid of it. Things like that to mentally train yourself in a way to, yes, animals are amazing, and a lot of homesteaders, what he shares about, want to be an animal's best friend. But at the end of the day, a cow is still a cow and a sheep is still a sheep. You have to mentally get yourself in a different place if you're wanting to raise animals sustainably in a way that is going to utilize your land well and better your land, because you're taking care of rotational grazing, you're taking care of, putting nutrition back into the land and just different things like that. It's chock full of everything. Like he talks about specifically like laying hens, broilers, pigs, goats and sheep, having a milk cow, rabbits, and then he goes into, there's an entire chapter devoted to urban possibilities. So if you live in a place where you're like, I can't possibly have animals here, obviously you have to make sure you're not in an HOA that has specific guidelines against having animals or something like that. But if you're in small spaces and there are no regulations about not having animals, you can have chickens, you can have goats, or not goats, you can have rabbits. Depends on how big, I guess. You can have a goat. Who knows? So he talks a lot about stuff like that. And then he also has an entire chapter about if you are wanting to raise animals to sell them for meat purposes, or if you're wanting to sell eggs or like just things like that. He really goes into some of the legality they've dealt with, what to be aware of, things that sometimes we may not think of. So if you, like a cow, if you invest in a dairy cow, a lot of times there's an abundance of milk that you're going to be bringing in if you don't have a big family to sustainably use all of the milk. So you're going to have to know how to use it into cheeses and different stuff. And then if you still have an abundance, how do I get rid of it? Can I give it away? Am I allowed to sell it? And he talks about a lot of things like that. How to set up layouts, how to set up your pasture areas efficiently, how much space certain animals need, how to make sure that they're not killing, your pasture, which animals to rotate after which ones. And there's a lot of things that is just a lack of knowledge, I feel. And it's just things that aren't taught. They are not taught. And there's a lot of people that are going into homesteading that did not grow up on a farm, that do not have family that have lived that lifestyle. So it's a blank slate. And so there's so much research to do, but having tools like something like this is amazing. And just a huge shout out to Joel and his team for writing a book that relates to a homestead scale is amazing. I don't know if you guys watched Justin Rhodes, but he wrote the foreword in this book. It was really good, and I just like the simplicity that Joel uses in this book, and just his way of life is very simple. He doesn't over exaggerate. He doesn't have big shiny buildings that cost, a lot of money, because sometimes if you're wanting to build something, you're wanting to maybe build it bigger, because then if you have to expand, you can, but if you build a bigger building than you're actually ready for, you may not have the finances to do something like that. So he just shares about very inexpensive ways to have proper fencing and buildings and stuff like that you don't have to go spend a lot of money on structures and stuff. So I am a big fan. I made a lot of notes in the chicken chapter and the water irrigation chapter. We are planning on getting chickens once we move, and broilers, so like meat chickens. We also want to look into rabbits. We've never actually Mike has raised rabbits, but they've never raised rabbits for meat. So that is something that we want to do more research into as well. And the water one, I tagged a lot of pages because we have an abundance of water over there. And there are simple ways that he shows you how to get water from point A to point B without spending a lot of money. Yeah, then he talks about rabbits, and I think rabbits are just an understated, easy way of meat for a homestead. He also talks about coop sizes based on how many chickens. I highly recommend it to other people. I will be giving it a 5-star. There's a lot of information packed in here, and he also gives you a bunch of authors that he has leaned into that go into more descriptive detail about specific topics, and that was a big thing too. I highlighted a lot of authors, so I'll be looking for some more books. But one thing I recommend, and this is easy for me to say because I like to read, but books are a great thing to have, because I mean, yes, we have access to the internet, and it's super, super convenient. But what if your internet dies? Or what if you don't have cell service somewhere, and there's a bunch of variables that can happen. You always will have a book, and in a book you can tag and mark and make notes, and you'll always have that at your hands. You don't have to Google search it, and then if your phone is not working, or if you don't have service or anything like that, you can still look it up. So I recommend books. I like to read, and so yeah, if you are somebody that is wanting to venture out into homesteading or getting animals, or just learning more about what it would take to have animals and to acquire them, to take care of them responsibly, how much land is responsible for what animals and stuff like that, I highly recommend you start reading things like this. Mike and I both grew up in the environment of farms. I grew up on a farm. Mike grew up on a farm. Both of my parents grew up on a farm, as did Mike's parents. They both grew up on farms. So we're surrounded with a lot of knowledge, but a lot of the practices that are used in today's farming are not very earth friendly. They're not ways to put back what you're taking out. So I just find that tools like this and people who think like this is very important to also learn more about. So I hope this inspires you a little bit. I just wanted to share a little bit about what I thought of this book, and just encourage you guys to keep reading more and educate yourselves if this is something that you're wanting to jump into, because there is a lot to take on responsibility wise, and you don't want to burn yourself out, and he talks about that a lot. So preparing yourself and setting yourself up for success because you knew what to expect is a huge thing. But I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.